Nude man disappears into the woods in 1913, returned 60 days later with tons of controversies. How many of us would dare to disconnect from the modern world and live in complete isolation? Not many. But in 1913, a man called Joe Knowles isolated himself from the rest of the world for a period of 60 days. He wore nothing and carried no supplies as he entered the woods in Eustis, Maine, situated over 200 miles north of Boston. The 43-year-old illustrator who worked for the Boston Sunday Post wanted to conduct an experiment to see what it was like to live away from modern civilization. After arriving in a brown suit, Knowles, who was about to embark on his journey to isolation, disappeared in the woods stark naked without any supplies. How did he decide to live in complete isolation for 60 days? Well, some say Knowles came up with this idea at a bar with his friend Michael McCoe. Knowles claims it was while he was painting in Vermont. Whatever the inspiration may be, in 1913 this was one of the most talked about survival shows, and all leading newspapers wanted exclusive rights to Knowles' journey. However, only the Boston Post and Boston Sunday landed final rights to publish the story. But how if Knowles wasn't going to carry any supplies? Knowles had to learn to carve charcoal pencils and make parchment from birch bark in order to document his life in isolation. A special spot was arranged where Knowles would leave his written notes for a fellow employee to collect and publish in the newspaper. In his first written notes, Knowles claimed that he had made a basket to collect berries and other fruits and a spear to catch fish. He couldn't light a fire due to damp woods, but to keep safe he constructed a shelter from branches and moss. Then, for over a week, Knowles didn't leave any notes for collection. The newspaper used this time to build tension among its readers, who were following Knowles' story by stating that he may be helpless and injured. Soon after, Knowles began leaving his notes for his readership, claiming that he'd caught a bear and killed it with a club. Towards the end of his 60-day isolation journey, Knowles had to trek the strenuous terrain of the forest to make his way outside the Quebecois village of Megantic. Knowles looked different from when he first went into isolation. Sporting a dark tan, a bruised Knowles emerged as the nation's first reality show celebrity. After returning to civilization, Knowles wrote his first book titled Alone in the Wilderness, and even starred in a movie in 1914. The American started claiming that Knowles was living in a good cabin and eating good food, living in perfect condition for his 60-day isolation. Then, 25 years later, more evidence by Richard O. Boyer confirmed the American's allegation. According to Boyer, it was McCoe who left handwritten notes in the woods and not Knowles. McCoe also claimed that he had to pay off a trapper who found them living comfortably in the woods. As far as the bearskin was concerned, McCoe claims they bought it for $12, and towards the end of the journey, an Indian guide was secretly hired to help Knowles emerge from the woods.